Romans 7:18. For I know that in me, now notice what it says here, that is, in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. So when Paul's talking about in me in this verse, what does he mean by in me? He means in my flesh. So what he's saying here is in my flesh, what's there? No good thing. There's nothing redeemable in our flesh. We'll go to Galatians 2:20. Go turn to Galatians 2:20, but let me make this point. You know what most people think? I'm not perfect, but I'm basically a good person. My good outweighs my bad. If you make a list of my good deeds and my bad deeds, my good is more than my bad. What people have the idea of is the scales of justice. They show up at the great white throne judgment. God takes their good works and their bad works. He puts their good works on this side of the scale. He puts their bad works on this side of the scale. And what people think is they think, well, I'm not perfect, but my good, it outweighs my bad. And so when God does his analysis, he's going to let me into heaven. Now, what's the problem with that? What is God's standard? Is God's standard that if you're 51% good, then he says, come on in? Romans 3:23 says, for all have made mistakes occasionally, for all have sinned, and because they've sinned, what happens? They've come short of the glory of God. So this test is not, well, I'm 51% and God's going to let me in. No, no, no. The test is perfect righteousness, which you don't have. Right? Now look with me at Galatians 2, verse 20. I am crucified with Christ. I've been put to death. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. And so the way to think about the saved life is it is not I, but Christ living in me. That's the way to think of it. Now, notice the second part of Romans 7, verse 18. Romans 7, verse 18. That is, in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. So go down to verse 23. So in Romans 7, go down to verse 23. But I see another law in my members, that's the flesh, that's the body, warring against the law of my mind. So there's a contrast there between the body and the mind. And bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. What Romans 7:23 is saying is that every believer has a civil war going on because there's conflict between the mind and the flesh. And what do they do against one another? It says that they war. They're in conflict. Now notice this. It says, bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. So where does the law of sin reside? It's in the body. It's in the flesh. It's in the members. Now what Paul said is that in verse 18 he says, in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. So there is nothing good in the flesh. Get with me 1 Corinthians 15, verse 53. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 53. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So the thing we know about this body is it's corruptible. It's not going to last forever. It's going to decay. And we know that in it dwelleth no good thing. So here's what happened when you got saved. When you got saved, you're a new creature. You were spiritually circumcised from the flesh. But where do your soul and spirit reside? Your soul and spirit are within you. They reside in this body. The basic problem you have is the moment you got saved, you were eternally saved, you were spiritually circumcised, but you remain in this same body that you had before, and it didn't get any better. And it's where the law of sin resides. That's the nature of the trouble that we have. Look with me at the last part of verse, go back with me to Romans 7:18. Romans 7:18. For to will is present with me. Now the me is the flesh, you know that from the first part of the verse. But how to perform that which is good, I find not. So your flesh has the ability to will. It has the ability to desire to do things. But what does it not have the ability to do? Perform. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had moments in life as a saved person where you were disappointed with your behavior? And the answer is you have, right? And the problem is the flesh has the ability to will, but what does it not have the ability to do? Perform. Doesn't follow through. It can't do the things that we would like it to do.